Something has changed in recent days, almost without anyone saying it openly. Some of the tendencies of the previous pontificate seem to have suddenly slowed, if not completely ended, at least for now. Nothing definitive, nothing announced, but enough to indicate that the atmosphere is different. And what happened this week could mark a turning point, whose significance we haven't yet grasped. Stay with us until the end. The Pope returned to Rome after his trip to Turkey and Lebanon, a short but very packed itinerary which offered the world the first real coordinates of the new pontificate. These are intense, decisive days, in which the new pontificate is revealing its first signs, often more subtle than they appear. And precisely in this context, signs are emerging that deserve to be closely observed. The new pontificate is demonstrating something many did not expect. Not a revolutionary impetus, not a spectacular gesture of rupture, but a silent firmness that, precisely because it is not ostentatious, carries much greater weight. Two issues that had sparked growing tensions in recent years were addressed almost simultaneously, and this is no coincidence. The first concerns marriage, the second, the female diaconate. Two issues around which the ecclesial debate had become so heated as to verge on internal division. And now, with the dry style that has become Leon's hallmark, both are brought back into clearer, but not fully resolved coordinates. And it is precisely this residual ambiguity, this gray area that remains open, that generates the greatest tension today. On marriage, the doctrine of the faith has recalled the essential. The Church intends by this name only the union between a man and a woman. A simple, direct statement, which for years had been taken for granted, only to later become a battleground between pastoral readings and theological interpretations. Yet, even in this case, nothing was presented as definitive. The text simply states what the Church has always believed, but deliberately avoids going into the details of the most controversial issues that have arisen in recent times. And there's a clear implication in that choice. It was decided to re-establish a fixed point, without, however, formally closing the discussion. A prudent move, a strategy, or simply the awareness that the pontificate cannot afford at the outset to set fire to an already flammable field. There's no clear answer, and that's precisely why the document continues to spark debate. Those hoping for a softer stance were left disappointed. Those seeking an explicit condemnation found the text too nuanced. And so, what should have been a clarification brings with it a sense of unease. The principle is safe, yes, but the future scenario remains far from certain. Much clearer, at least descriptively, was the outcome of the third commission on the female diaconate. 3 commissions convened during the previous pontificate, 3 identical outcomes. It is not possible to confer holy orders on women. Not an opinion, not a statement, but an observation made after examining historical, theological, and liturgical arguments. Not even the reference to the ancient deaconesses could offer any support, because their function, as the original text recalls, was a disciplinary service, not a sacramental rank. It is striking to note that despite the presence of members considered potentially in favor, the response was the same every time. And here, the political ecclesial crux opens. Leo did not proclaim a definitive closure, but he made it clear that a 4th commission would be useless. When 3 groups of scholars reach the same conclusion. It is difficult to imagine a pope willing to reopen a process that would only promise further divisions. The original text itself suggests that, even without solemn declarations, the issue is destined to remain static for a very long time. And it is precisely at this point that Leo's pontificate shows its true face. Not that of a man who wants to please everyone, not that of a prudent administrator who avoids tensions, but that of a pastor who intervenes strategically on the most explosive fronts to prevent them from degenerating. The widespread impression is that there's no desire to dismantle anything, but neither does it mean allowing the church to be swept away by centrifugal currents. Stabilizing doesn't mean freezing, it means preventing instability from turning into chaos. But there's no reason to delude ourselves. Nothing that's happened in recent days warrants overly optimistic interpretations. Leo is not an accommodating pope, and his actions are not at all an attempt to make everyone happy. Indeed, it is precisely his sobriety that alarms those who hoped or feared radical changes. Because, if on the one hand, marriage is restored to its original meaning, on the other hand, the document does not completely eliminate the possibility of future debates. And the female diaconate receives a triple negative verdict. This is not accompanied by a dogmatic declaration that definitively closes the issue. The decisions taken so far put out the fire, but the embers remain, and everyone knows it. This is what creates tension, not harshness, but precision, not closure, but the elimination of shortcuts, not the revolution, but the fact that the expectations of certain circles, progressive and otherwise, were contradicted quietly, without clashes, without giving the impression of wanting to commit an ideological act. For now, the Church is maintaining its balance, but it's a balance built on fragile lines, and how Leo handles the upcoming issues, synodality, the role of the laity, traditional liturgy, will depend precisely on what appears most evident today. The desire to avoid sacrificing the truth, to save peace, but also to avoid useless wars that the Church cannot afford. In a certain sense, this pontificate begins where the previous one left unresolved ground, not with a clean slate, not with an act of force, but with a surgical gesture, taking the pressure off, bringing the issues back to their essential core, letting the doctrine itself, and not internal battles, dictate the pace of the future. If you feel the need to rediscover the peace, beauty, and depth of authentic faith, let Gregorian chant accompany you. Visit Fides et Traditio. You'll find voices, prayers, and sounds that bring the heart back to the silence of God. Find the link in the description. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment. Amen. God bless you.